France 24's Armen Georgian is keeping a close eye on that meeting. He joins me now on the set to talk a bit more about all of this. Armen, first of all, is there any sign so far that relations are improving between France and the U.S.?
Well, the French government has essentially put this into the ball into the court of the US and indeed the other two countries that it felt slighted over when the submarine deal was announced. That's to say Australia and the UK. So of those three countries that, so to speak, stabbed France in the back, according to the official narrative, really, the US is the one out of the three that stands out in being the most visible in trying to make amends. We saw before this visit of Kamala Harris, the also visits of the US Secretary of State and the US National Security Advisor to France, and now the US Vice President in France for 5 days, which is already pretty substantial length, which in itself shows that the White House is treating this partnership as something that it really wants to improve. There are a lot of things on the agenda. However, President Macron has made it clear, as I alluded to at the beginning, that it's essentially up to the US after the submarine problem. It's up to the US to make these concrete steps. Just to remind everybody of what he said in Rome at that bilateral meeting with Joe Biden that you can see pictures of in the background of our screen. So this was at the end of October. At that meeting in Rome, Macron saying, I think we clarified together what we had to clarify. What's important now is to be sure that such a situation will not be possible for our future. Stronger coordination, stronger cooperation. So we have to make sure that this doesn't happen again. That is essentially what he's saying, and he's made it clear that it's up to the US to make those steps.
So what does the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris have to offer Macron after these other meetings with all these other officials?
Well, there's a lot on the agenda. I mean, firstly, the two countries want to do more together in space defense projects. And in the background of that is obviously the whole Chinese space programs. And given that France and the U.S. see themselves as space powers to greater or lesser degrees, that is an area of cooperation. Kamala Harris also talked about more mutual support for medical and scientific projects. She said that at the Pasteur Institute this Tuesday. Let's have a listen to her talking about that issue.
Some of the most significant discoveries in science on any issue from rabies to HIV/AIDS to breast cancer to mRNA and what we do around vaccines and pandemics have occurred here in collaboration with French scientists, American scientists around the world coming together.
So we know that at this meeting today between Macron and Harris, there's going to be regional security issues discussed. The two sides have already said that would happen. So what do we mean by regional security issues? I think two things to watch on that agenda. One is the Sahel, and France is very keen to get the US to continue and maybe even increase logistical and intelligence support to French anti-terrorism operations in the Sahel. So we'll see if anything concrete really comes out of the meeting in that respect. But also the whole Indo-Pacific region obviously is a big issue. What will France's role be given that the US is going to work more closely with Australia and the UK in the Indo-Pacific, given that France is still a Pacific power with French troops and naval resources and overseas territories? We'll have to see if there's any clarification on that. Certainly at the Rome bilateral between Biden and Macron, in that final communique, the US did signal its intent to increase its support and material contribution to French air and naval operations in the Indo-Pacific. So again, we'll have to see if Kamala Harris builds on that statement of intent that was announced in Rome in a more concrete way here in Paris.
Armen, thanks for that. France 24's Armen Georgian.